Hello, Formula One fans. The U.S. Grand Prix has sparked a major controversy, and Mercedes boss Toto Wolff didn't hide his frustration. Today, we're diving into Wolff's strong accusations against the FIA and the decisions that, according to him, favor certain drivers. The big question now is, was there bias in the race rulings in Austin, and more? Right after, we'll talk about Max Verstappen, who dodged a controversial question about Lando Norris after being called out by Jenson Button. So get ready, because today's video is packed with controversies and key moments from the season. F1 news is heating up, so don't waste any time. Subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the F1 updates. Just hit the subscribe button below the video. It's quick, free, and doesn't require signing up. This is F1 Fastline News, your daily Formula One news channel. Let's get straight to it. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff was visibly upset after the end of the race at the Circuit of the Americas. The reason? The FIA's penalties during the United States Grand Prix. According to Wolff, the stewards' decisions were clearly biased and favored some drivers over others. The spark that ignited this frustration was the penalty given to George Russell. Russell received a 5-second penalty for forcing Valtteri Bottas off the track at turn 12 while moving up the field in the early laps of the race. What's curious is that later on, Pierre Gasly was penalized for a similar incident, raising the flag that the stewards were consistently applying the rule at that point. However, what really set Wolff off was the incident involving Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, which happened at the same corner. During an intense maneuver between the two, Verstappen forced Norris off the track, and the Brit ended up getting a 5-second penalty for overtaking outside the track limits. Meanwhile, Verstappen walked away unpunished, which caused major dissatisfaction not only at Mercedes, but also at McLaren. After the checkered flag, George Russell quickly asked over the radio if Verstappen had been penalized for another situation earlier in the race, where the Dutchman had also forced Norris off the track right after the start. The response from Mercedes' pit wall was clear. No, he wasn't penalized. That's when Toto Wolff, unable to hide his frustration, fired back. In the end, Lando got punished for being forced off and overtaking outside. I think it's a rather biased decision, but I'm not surprised. These words carry a direct criticism of what Wolff sees as a possible lack of fairness in the FIA's decisions. He made it clear that, in his view, there's a worrying inconsistency in how the rules are applied to different drivers, especially when it comes to a world champion like Verstappen. But Wolff wasn't alone in his frustration. McLaren team boss Andrea Stella also didn't hide his displeasure in an interview with Sky Sports F1 right after the race. Stella was particularly upset with what he called undue interference by the stewards in a great on-track battle. My view is that the way the stewards interfered in a beautiful racing moment was inappropriate because both cars were off the track, so both gained an advantage, Stella criticized. He also pointed out that the penalty cost McLaren the chance to secure an important podium, especially after a tough start to the race for Norris, who was forced off right at the first corner of the first lap. It's a shame because it cost us a podium. It cost us a race where we were patient after being pushed off on the first lap at the first corner. We accepted that. Although the stewards' decision caused a lot of dissatisfaction in both teams, Mercedes and McLaren know there's no way to appeal these penalties. Having made our position very clear, this kind of decision by the stewards cannot be appealed. For us, this chapter is closed and now we move forward, Stella concluded. With this situation, the question remains, is the FIA really making fair and impartial decisions? Or does Max Verstappen's champion status give him a certain protection against harsher penalties? Regardless of the answer, the fact is that both Mercedes and McLaren left the U.S. Grand Prix with a bitter taste, feeling that they could have achieved better results if the stewards' decisions had been different. Shifting gears, now let's talk about the second controversial point from the U.S. Grand Prix, involving Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. The two drivers had an intense battle in the final laps of the race, but this duel ended up being marked by a controversial decision from the stewards that came at a high cost for Norris. In the race's closing moments with fresher tires, Lando Norris finally overtook Max Verstappen at turn 12. However, the Brit went off the track during the move and didn't give the position back, leading the stewards to issue a 5-second penalty, dropping Norris back to 4th place, despite finishing 4 seconds ahead of Verstappen. After the race, the Dutchman was interviewed by Jenson Button, who directly asked him about the incident at turn 12. Max was straightforward, saying he had his own opinion on what happened, but preferred not to comment publicly, leaving the stewards to do their job. According to Verstappen, the race was quite challenging, especially since he had difficulty braking and struggled with understeer, which made it hard to defend his position against Norris. Verstappen also emphasized that it was an important learning experience for the Red Bull team, as their race pace on Sunday was slower than in the sprint race, which he won on Saturday. With the result, Max extended his lead over Norris in the Drivers' Championship to 57 points, with only 5 races remaining on the calendar. On the other hand, Lando Norris didn't hide his frustration when talking about the penalty he received. In the post-race interview, the Brit criticized the steward's delay in making a decision, suggesting that the judgment wasn't straightforward. Norris also pointed out that Verstappen went off the track at the same moment, implying that the Dutchman gained an advantage by doing so, but in the end, he wasn't the one making the rules. The Brit was particularly annoyed by the fact that, in his view, Verstappen wasn't penalized for overtaking or defending his position while going off track. However, even amid his frustration, Norris acknowledged that Max did a good job defending his position and that their battle was good, but he made it clear that the rules should be applied consistently. The controversy has sparked yet another debate about the consistency of stewards' decisions in close racing situations between drivers. The question remains, was the decision that favored Verstappen and penalized Norris fair? Formula One fans remain divided, and this was yet another race that fueled the rivalry between the two drivers fighting for the top spots in the championship. With the championship entering its final stages, every detail matters even more. The tension between Verstappen and Norris goes beyond just an on-track battle, but also their chances in the championship. For Norris, each race is now an opportunity to close the gap to Verstappen, and any mistake could be costly. On the other hand, Verstappen is in a position of control but can't afford to relax. With rivals like Norris and Ferrari getting stronger, a mistake or a steward's decision against him could change the course of the season. All this makes the upcoming races crucial for the outcome of this unpredictable championship. With the 57-point gap between Verstappen and Norris, time is running out for the McLaren driver. He'll need to be nearly perfect in the remaining races if he wants to keep his hopes of winning the title alive. As for Max Verstappen, even with struggles in the U.S. Grand Prix, he is getting closer to locking in yet another world championship. The only thing left now is to see how both drivers will perform in the upcoming rounds, where every point will be critical. Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think about this battle between Verstappen and Norris and the steward's decision. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, what are you waiting for? Here we talk about Formula One without beating around the bush, with strong opinions and lots of information. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and come be a part of this passionate fan community. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and share it with your fellow Formula One fans. Let's keep growing this fan community together. See you next time, speeding towards victory.